Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone out there in YouTube land. Welcome into our study, Praising God Through Prayer and Worship. Uh, is that what the title of it is? Oh my goodness, I've said it so many times and you take things for granted. Anyway, welcome to my sister Adrienne. Yeah, I did have it right. Anyway, we are today studying Psalm 76, and so we've got our study tools all prepared. And let's get started in prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you again for this beautiful day that you've given to us. Wherever we are in the world, it's beautiful because you are with us and because you have given us the life and the breath to enjoy it. And we determine in our hearts to find all of the goodness that you have given us, no matter where we are, no matter what our circumstances, because you are sovereign, you are Lord, and we love you. We adore you. We lift up your name as holy and righteous and just and merciful and gracious. And we thank you that all of those things you look at us with those parts of yourself that cause us to grow and to have fortitude to carry on. And so, Father God, I just pray that you'd use this study mightily in a great way today with all of the viewers and the participants. And I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so we are in Psalm 76. And I wanted to tell the listening audience or the viewing audience, whoever you are, that I've broken some of the days down into two. So your title page said day 2, but we are in a different psalm. That's because the book puts two psalms together sometimes because they're short, and sometimes it takes more than one day to finish a long psalm. But I just decided it was much better for me and for Adrienne if we just broke it down psalm by psalm. We can have a better handle on it. So we're on page 110 in the book, and we are looking at day 2, Psalm 76. And Adrienne's going to read for us.
Okay. For the choir director, on stringed instruments, a psalm of Asaph, a song. God is known in Judah. His name is great in Israel. His tabernacle is in Salem. His dwelling place also is in Zion. There he broke the flaming arrows, the shield and the sword and the weapons of war, Selah. You are
Resplendent.
resplendent, thank you. Resplendent, more majestic than the mountains of prey. The stout-hearted were plundered. They sank into sleep, and none of the warriors could use his hands. At your rebuke, O God of Jacob, both rider and horse were cast into a dead sleep. You, even you, are to be feared. And who may stand in your presence when once you are angry? You caused judgment to be heard from heaven. The earth feared and was still. When God arose to judgment, to save all the humble of the earth. For the wrath of man shall praise you. With a remnant of wrath you will gird yourself. Make vows to the Lord your God and fulfill them. Let all who are around him bring gifts to him who is to be feared. He will cut off the spirit of princes. He is feared by the kings of the earth.
Wow. Did you see a new word that got repeated?
I saw a word I couldn't pronounce.
That happens too. But what did you see? Did you see another word that gets repeated? We didn't really mark it. I don't think when we saw it before because it wasn't. At least I don't see that I have marked it. Although I do mark this word. But let's start marking this one. Let's put a new one on our book. And it is. Oh dear, where did it go?
I'm looking for a minute as I go through this.
Angry. Anger.
Anger and wrath, they seem to pop up in this one.
Yeah, so I mark those indignation. I think we've talked about this before. Indignation is also another one that we see in reference to the Lord. And because that is a burning hot emotion, I use red. So I that yeah. And for wrath, I put a big red W on top of the red because the wrath of God is a theme in the Bible, and it is a fact of it's a fact, it's a truth, and so we need to mark it and pay attention. And I fear that in our culture, people have strayed from examining the wrath of God to come. Because it has been falsely applied, I think, in the past. Um, but we still need to look at it because it is a truth. So let's go to our markings. I don't have my glasses on today, so you have to forgive me. I'm not seeing very well the text. Okay,
I
are
don't
you
see
ready?
well even with my glasses, so there you go.
Don't get old, our mother used to say. Too late, mummy.
Oh, and I just read in the book that it's important to notice that Salem is considered Israel.
Okay, so just hang on a second because it says that in the book, but I pulled up something on the internet when we get to that verse. Okay, I pulled up the Blue Letter Bible, and oh, I thought I did there. Yes, no, I didn't. I had it.
You
Here
thought
we
you
go.
had?
Well, I did. Here, I'm going to do it again because it's easy to do. Ooh.
You do that while I look for what
Oh,
I'm
your
looking
pencils are
for.
really making a lot of noise, Adrian.
I know.
And I'm going to look. We're in Psalm 76 because the Blue Letter Bible. Do you know how we've been talking about, or I have been saying I don't know about the things in the say maybe in the Hebrew or Greek. Well, the Blue Letter Bible, and it's blueletterbible.org. And oh, I can do this in a different version. I can do it in, oh dear. New American Standard is what we're reading out of. Go there. So we're in Psalm 76. And it's got some notes on that I want to bring up when we get to that verse. Okay? So we're just going to read and mark, and then we'll talk about the things later.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yep. Okay. God is known in Judah. And I'm marking Judah.
Are you?
Yeah, because.
Okay.
But I'm not leaving it that way. I'm going to do something
The
special to it.
tribe of Judah.
There.
Mm-hmm.
His name is great in Israel. There's Israel. His tabernacle. I'm trying to find my. Oh, I'll just use this one. It works. Is in Salem, and there we are.
We're not going. Oh, we're keep going.
His dwelling place also is in Zion.
Okay, Zion I always mark as a mountain.
Yes.
In the same color as Israel as that I mark.
I don't know how to mark a mountain.
I kind of
There.
I underline it and make 3 peaks. Boy, it's funny, doing this for the camera. 3 peaks. Okay.
There
We do have fun when we're studying, don't we? You can have fun when you're studying.
There he broke the flaming arrows, the shield and the sword, and the weapons of war. Selah. Mm-hmm. You
Well, now yeah. So
I can't
read
say
it.
that word.
Okay, hang on again because we don't want to. We want people to understand that we don't always mark at first sight because sometimes we make a mistake. So we want to know who the you is. So
You are
how where do we okay, so stop for a minute. Sorry, I interrupted you, but what verse do we find out who the you is in this?
First, I need to know what that word means.
No, we'll come back to it. We're looking for you.
I am looking at you.
Okay, so where do we find out who the you is? What verse?
Well, I'm in verse 4.
Yes, but we that
Still.
doesn't tell who you is.
I get to verse 6, and then
Yes.
I'm still confused.
So at verse 6 it tells us who you is. Who is you? What does
God,
it say in verse 6?
at your rebuke, O God of Jacob.
Yes, so that's who you is. But I just want to make sure that you understand this. Like we can scan read it and make an assumption about who the subject is or who the object is. But sometimes you have to go down a few verses to see who it is that you're talking about. And that is good studentship. So when we're marking sometime, and I know I have done this when I was learning to mark early, I would just run through and mark, mark, mark. But some of them are wrong because I didn't go down far enough and consider what I was reading. Do you understand what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so now we understand it in verse 4, you is God.
But in saying that, I figured it was God when I got into the second half of verse 4.
Yes, of course. Yes. Yes, but the confirmation comes when it says
When
at
you get
your
down to
rebuke.
verse 6,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, when it gets down to verse 6. Now, can I have the definition of that
No.
word?
Yes, okay, resplendent. When I think of resplendent, I think okay, we can get you can get a dictionary definition of it. But when I think resplendent, think of the word splendor. Do you know the word splendor? The absolute splendor, beauty. So splendor and resplendent come from the same they come from the same root word. And I think it's Latin.
Okay.
Splendor,
No,
resplendent.
yeah, it might be. It says in the from definitions from Oxford Languages.
Mm-hmm.
It says it's an adjective, and it says attractive and impressive through being richly colorful or sumptuous.
Yes, exactly. So I had a picture in my I had a picture in my mind when you were saying that, but I couldn't I had a picture. I had a picture of this golden sun thing sending its rays everywhere and everything was more brilliant and bright and colorful, resplendent. So good, you read good for the definition. For anybody else who didn't know. Okay, so
Okay, yes, I didn't know that one. Anyways, you are more resplendent, now I can say it, more majestic than the mountains of prey. The stout hearted were plundered. They sank deep into sleep, and none of the warriors could use his hands. At your rebuke, O God of Jacob, and I'm marking Jacob as Israel because that's what
yes,
he
because that's who he is.
exactly. Oh, God of Jacob, both rider and horse were cast into a dead sleep. Dead. You, hold on, even you are to be feared. Yep.
Oh, feared, right. We always mark that, don't we?
And I'm going to mark it.
Well, of course, my pen's not working.
And who may stand in your presence when once you are angry? Now I'm
There
marking
it is.
angry. Angry. Where's my color? I don't have a color for angry.
You got a nice fiery red.
There. You caused judgment.
You.
Yep. Judgment. To be heard from heaven. The earth feared. And was still. When God arose to judgment. There's a lot of judgment in this one.
Mm-hmm.
To serve, to save.
Yeah, there.
All the humble of the earth. For the wrath. I'm doing wrath in a different color. Of man shall praise you.
That's an interesting turn of phrase.
With a remnant of wrath, you will gird yourself. Make vows to the Lord your God and fulfill them. Let all who are around him bring gifts to him who is to be feared. He, hold on, yep, will cut off the spirit of princes. He is feared by the kings of the earth.
Very good, very good. So I see that our text is divided into 4 segments. So I want to, I'm not sure if I can share this screen. Oh dear. I haven't learned how to do that really very well. If it totally combobulates, oh no, I guess I don't have a share screen. Okay. Okay, so that's something now I'm going to learn how to do a share screen while we're in this mode of eCam. All right, so I'm going back and I'm at blueletterbible.org. I'm in the NASB 95, Psalm 76. In the tools, not in the tools section. What do they call that? Hang on, let me just go back. If you do that. Okay, what I'm looking at the far left, you see a little box and it says tools, and then it says each separate verse of the psalm, and then the psalm is written, the verse is written out next to that. So I'm going to click on the link that says verse 2, because it says his tabernacle is in Salem, his dwelling place also is in Zion. And I'm going to look at the Hebrew. And I can't read Hebrew, so I'm just looking for the transliterations into English for what it says. Okay, his tabernacle to me says sok or sok. I'm not sure. Okay. And it's Hebrew 55:20. That's the word. And it can mean den, pavilion, tabernacle, thicket, lair, or booth. And so it's a noun, but that we don't really need to know all of that. Okay, so I just wanted to tell you how I'm doing this. Now I'm going back because we were looking at is in Salem, and I think that's Shalom, because Shalem, I don't know how to pronounce it, but and everybody, you can just ignore me. But it means peace, and I found this particularly significant. So I'm going to Shalem. I want to say this because I've learned a little bit about this because when I was studying the book of Genesis. So let me just tell you what this is. So Salem equals peace. So when people say shalom, that means peace, right? Peace.
Yeah.
And they use that word also in Arabic, and my camera looks a little fuzzy. I'm sorry, everybody, can't fix it. It says here, it is the place of which Melchizedek was king. And to us, Melchizedek is incredibly significant because Melchizedek is mentioned in the New Testament, and I believe it's in the book of Hebrews, but I could be wrong. I did study it, but my recall is terrible. Melchizedek, Jesus is a king in the order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek is mentioned in Genesis 14, verse 18, and it was mentioned. He was mentioned in the account of Abraham.
He was also mentioned in Psalm 110.
Okay, so Melchizedek. All right. Melchizedek was the king of Shalem. Okay? And Jerusalem is where most people say that the place where Melchizedek was king. Okay?
Right.
So it has, so all of those things. So anybody can go and look that up themselves and do a deeper dig if you want. I'm going back to where I was. Okay, so his dwelling place also is in Zion. Okay, so now that is Hebrews 67:26. Zion. And in terms of biblical usage, Zion is called a parched place, and it's another name for another name for Jerusalem in the prophetic books. Okay? So you can look that up in the Strong's number, and you can look up all the references for it, and let's get back to our study. All right. His name is great in Israel. His tabernacle is in Salem, and I'm going to pronounce it the English way. His dwelling place also is in Zion. There he broke the flaming arrows, the shield and the sword, and the weapons of war. Okay, now, fiery shafts of the bow. Now, because I'm not placing this psalm historically in my mind to understand this, I'm not sure, again, whether this is an incident he's referring back to. But it does appear in the past, so that's what we're going to do. Okay. I can hear your clickety keys.
Sorry.
All right. In verse 4, you are resplendent, more majestic than the mountains of prey. The stout-hearted were plundered. They sank into sleep, and none of the warriors could use his hands. Isn't that an amazing battle that the Lord fought? When the Lord fights the battle, the enemy is conquered. And we have seen, if you look in the historical accounts of things happening in the history of Israel, where God's army, God worked. His army hardly had to lift a finger. I mean, the human armies. Yeah. You can see many times of that. So, yeah. And we know also that there is a great battle yet to come, a great, huge battle yet to come. And we know that Christ the King will conquer all of this. So you can look at it in a slightly prophetic sense, but maybe not. All right. All right, they sank into sleep, into a dead sleep. So that is a very interesting way to conquer your enemy, by putting them to sleep, in a dead sleep. All right. Okay, I'm going back to the text here. It says for us in 76. Okay. Okay, we learn here that Mount Zion is one of the hills in Jerusalem. Okay, so that's good. So what do we learn about God? What are we learning? And according to this psalm, what is the purpose of God's judgment? This is an important thing, because we see the wrath of God. And people who misunderstand God's wrath think of it with a spin on it that maybe we should examine better. Okay. Verse 8, you cause judgment to be heard from where? Verse 8?
From heaven. Yeah.
From heaven.
Took me a minute.
And what happened when that judgment was heard?
The earth feared and was still.
Yes. And then when God arose to judgment, why did he arise to judgment? What was the reason?
To save all the humble of the earth.
Yes. There are a lot of us humble on the earth right now. And the more you listen to news sources of all sorts, you understand that we little people who vote for leaders really are not having much of a say in what's being done, in how our lives are being ordered by the people who have the power in this land, in our world, in all of lands. There's something here that I don't know whether it's a proper thing for me to think about, but it came to me as we were reading it. In verse 10 it says, for the wrath of man shall praise you, with a remnant of wrath you will gird yourself. I always mark remnant. I can't remember how I mark it, but I am going to mark it. Kind of like save. Because God, what we have learned throughout our studies, through the time that we've been studying, is that God always preserves his remnant. He always preserves a remnant of people who will declare his glory and praise. And that is so that others will come to know and fear him. And so for the wrath of man shall praise you. Okay, so these people who have been in the army have been put to sleep. Mm-hmm. The enemy has been put to sleep, cast into a dead sleep when the Lord was conquering them. And God is going to gird himself. To gird means, put a girdle on. We know what girdles are. Well, we don't wear them much anymore. But it's like a big waistband that you just tie up there. It keeps you. Sometimes if you're a motorcyclist, you might wear a girdle so that you don't rattle your insides out when you're riding, kind of thing. And God will gird himself with a remnant of wrath. Those of us who have done a deep dive, many years long study inductively into the book of Revelation will have some resonance in this. With a remnant of wrath you will gird yourself. Okay, now that's a new now we go into a new section from 11 and 12. What do we know is yet going to happen?
He's going to cut off the spirit of princes.
Mm-hmm. And let all who are around him bring gifts to him, who is to be feared. We also, who have studied in the book, a deep dive into the book of Revelation, understand this a little bit. The kings of earth are going to bring gifts to the coming king. He's going to cut off the spirit of princes. Now, that's a very interesting. I'm going back to this Blue Letter Bible, and I'm going to have a look and see what it says there. He will cut off, that's verse 12. He will cut off, it doesn't want to go there. The spirit of princes, Ruah. So, yeah, okay. That's 7307 Hebrew. Ruach. That's the same word that's used for the Holy Spirit. So it means wind, breath, mind, spirit. He will cut off the spirit of the princes. Cut their breath out of their courage. And it could mean their courage, anger, impatience, patience, their disposition. Or it could mean the spirit of the living, breathing being. So that means kill him. Right? He's going to kill them. Or it could mean the seat of the mental acts, the things of their moral character. There's a lot of things there that you can look up in Blue Letter Bible that will help make this understanding a little deeper. God is feared by the kings of the earth. So, I'm going to go back here and see what tense that is, because he is feared. 3372. It's Yare. I think Yare. Oh, I wonder if I played it, you could hear it. To fear, revere, be afraid, stand in awe of, reverence, honor, and respect, dreaded. Okay, so he is feared. Okay, so we live in a time, I just want to point out that we live in a time right now where very few, the fear of God is not before people's eyes. If people feared God, they'd be a lot more careful in the way they spoke and acted. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty clear. And I have to say that even individually, us, me, you, sometimes we act and speak in ways that if we really feared our Maker a little bit more, we would never say or do those kind of things.
That's for sure.
And we learned when we were studying wisdom, foolproofing your life, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. But fools despise wisdom and understanding. So, yeah, very important. I think the whole purpose of this study that we're doing together, and any study that I happen to be doing, is to teach us to have a biblical worldview and to examine everything, to make it a habit of our lives, to examine everything in light of Scripture, in light of the truths we know about God. So what do we know? Where is he known? Verse 26. What do we know about God?
26.
Sorry, I said entirely the wrong thing, because my eyes were looking at 76 and I said 26 and I meant verse 1. How is that? So where is he known?
He is known in Judah.
Where's his name great?
Israel.
Where is his tabernacle?
Salem.
Which could be Jerusalem, which is Jerusalem by all accounts. Where is his dwelling place?
Zion.
What did he do there?
Broke flaming arrows.
Shield and sword and the weapons of war. That brings back to me the thing of plowshares. He'll beat the plowshares or the weapons into plowshares. Okay. All right. What do we know he is in verse 4?
Resplendent.
There, good job. You've sent it enough that you can say it. More majestic than the mountains.
Mountains.
Okay. What about verse 7?
He is to be feared.
And what do if you change the last bit of that verse around, how could you say that in a different It's a question. Who may stand in your presence when once you are angry? If you made that as a statement, what would it say?
I don't know. I'm thinking.
Well, it's a rhetorical question in a way. Who may stand in your presence when once you are angry? What is the implication? Can anyone stand in
No.
their God's presence when he's no?
No,
So
no.
no one can stand in God's presence when he's angry. Um, you ready to go on to 8?
Yep.
Okay.
He caused judgment to be heard from heaven.
Mm-hmm. And what happened in verse 9?
He arose to judgment and to save all the humble of the earth.
Yep, so God saves all the humble of the earth. So the humble of the earth. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. You have to humble yourself to acknowledge him as God. For him to save you.
Exactly.
Okay. And what will he do at the end of verse 10?
With a remnant of wrath, he will gird himself.
He will gird himself with a remnant of wrath. Okay, so verse 12.
He will cut off the spirit of princes. He
And
is
he
feared
will.
by the kings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say he will be feared by the kings of the earth. Excellent. Good job. Good job. Those are the things about the Lord. Very important. If we had to write a theme for that, we haven't been marking our themes. What would we say?
What, a theme for a song?
Mm-hmm. Let's use words from the text. Let's say resplendent or majestic. Choose one of those.
I'm going to use majestic because I can't.
Okay, majestic God. Majestic God's wrath to be feared. Does that
Yes.
make... You can write whatever you
Yep.
like.
No, that's fine. That works.
Okay, good. Well, we've come to the end of our study for for us, the morning. And we're glad that you have stuck with us and enjoyed our little sister humor as we were going along. We know that the Lord has a sense of humor because it says the Lord laughs.
Yes, he does.
Yes, so there you go. And whoops, I've lost my earplug. Sorry. We also know that the Lord is patient with little children because Jesus took them on his knee to teach them and to use them as reference. So he is patient with us as we bumble along and study in our fashion. So we hope you'll join us again when we begin with Psalm 77. For Adrienne and I, we're going on to a weekend now, so we will see you soon. But I better end up in prayer. Let's do that. Heavenly Father, thank you so much that you always preserve your remnant and you preserve them from the wrath which is to come. Thank you that we are told that in the scripture that those who believe on the name of the Lord Jesus Christ will be saved and that we will be spared from the wrath which is to come. We know that you are a righteous God and you cannot wink or excuse wickedness, no matter where it is. So, Lord, I just pray that if there's any hurtful way within us, you would examine our hearts and that you would cause us to repent and to be cleansed and be forgiven. And I just ask this in the mighty name of Jesus, who purchased us and set us free and redeemed us to be a people for your own pleasure. And so thank you, Lord, for all of this. Amen. All right, you guys, it's been really fun. So we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.